from those districts, starting with District 10 Councillor Darren Bruckschwager and District 11 Councillor Darren O'Quinn, and District 8 Councillor James Edwards and District 9 Councillor Ken Tracy unfortunately are not able to attend tonight. They send their regrets, and they're both obviously very sorry that they're not able to be here tonight. In addition to our councillors, we have Mayor Amanda McDougall seated over here. We have the CFO, Jennifer Campbell. If you can just give a little wave as I'm mentioning your name. And we have Bill Murphy, the Director of Recreation Parks, Grounds and Buildings. Who else have we got? We've got Police Chief Robert Walsh and Director Wayne McDonald, Director of Engineering and Public Works. Who else? We have Michael Roos, who's the Director of Planning and Development. And we've got Gilbert McIntyre, who's the Deputy Chief of Police and, of Fire. And we have the all new advisor to the Mayor, Tanya Johnson-McVicker. Did I miss anybody? And we also have District 4 Councillor Steve Gillespie in the audience. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to start with a video that we produced when we were originally going to be doing these events purely online. The video is about 14 minutes long. It's rather comprehensive. It covers everything you need to know about how your taxes work and where your tax dollars go to. It kind of answers a lot of the basic questions so that it allows us to ask all sorts of other questions. After the video, I'm going to invite the mayor and the CFO to the stage. And then after a few welcoming opening words from them, we'll turn it over to the audience for a question and answer period. And when you have a question, you can just step up to that microphone right over there, just say your name and ask your question. And then whomever's the most appropriate person to answer that, be it the mayor, the CFO, or one of the councillors or senior staff, those people seated over there are going to step up to that microphone and they'll answer your question. And for folks who are watching online, if you'd like to submit a question, you can do so via email. And the email address for that is communications@cbrm.ns.ca. And our Director of Communications, Christina Lamy, is going to be fielding those. So without further ado, we'll get to the video.
Every year, the CBRM budgets for how to spend its revenue on the many municipal services residents depend on every day, like police and fire protection, garbage collection and disposal, road maintenance, as well as many more services you might not always think of, like streetlights, our own 911 call center, Handy Trans, our 3 arenas, the Regional Library Network, Parks and Trails, events and recreation programming, and grants to over 100 community organizations every year. So, where does that revenue come from? 77% of the municipality's revenue come from residential and commercial property taxes and grants in lieu of taxes from provincial and federal government agencies. Another 10% of CBRM's annual revenue comes in the form of an unconditional grant from the province, otherwise known as the Municipal Capacity Grant. And the remaining 13% derives mainly from fees for services, such as tipping fees at our landfill, rental fees for our facilities, and transit fares on our buses. Since more than 3/4 of the municipality's revenues are from property tax, it's important to understand just how your property tax bill is calculated in the first place. We take the assessed value of your home and multiply it by the tax rate. The tax rate is actually 4 separate rates. First, there's the base rate, which covers those core municipal services previously mentioned, as well as the support services essential to the operation of the municipality. This includes our Citizen Service Center, city planning and bylaw enforcement, finance, technology and communications, legal and human resources, and the legislative services of mayor and council and the municipal clerk's office. Next, there are provincial rates. This portion of your property tax covers the provincially delivered services of education, public housing, and correctional services. Then there are area rates for specific services, namely hydrants, sewer, and public transit. These rates are charged only if your home is within a certain distance of these services. This ensures that the cost of providing the service is paid only by the residents that receive or have access to it. For example, if you don't have access to the municipal sewer, you aren't charged the sewer rate. And lastly, we have fire rates, which vary depending on where you live. The average assessed value of a single-family home in the Cape Breton Regional Municipality is just over $100,000. When we multiply this assessed value by the appropriate rates, the average annual property tax for a homeowner in CBRM is approximately $1,600, which, as a percentage of income, is one of the lowest among comparable municipalities in Atlantic Canada. That works out to roughly $140 per month, less than what many people pay for their home or car insurance, or their utility or cable bill. And this covers all municipal and provincial services previously mentioned.
The largest portion of your property tax bill is for engineering and public works. It's the largest operational unit within the CBRM and is itself comprised of several departments. The Central, East, and North Divisions of Public Works, which are responsible for road and sidewalk maintenance, as well as streetlights and other municipal infrastructure. Solid Waste Management, Engineering Services, Transit to Cape Breton, the Public Works Fleet and Fleet Maintenance, the Municipal Water Utility, and Wastewater Operations and Treatment. A little over 40% of our operational budget is for wages and benefits. The other 60% covers contracts, equipment, vehicles, streetlights, electricity, fuel, and buildings. Looking ahead, we continue to advance significant projects in wastewater treatment, water utility, water distribution, and essential infrastructure rehabilitation projects across CBRM. We also continue with investments that allow us to do our jobs more effectively and more efficiently, like asset management tools so that we know what needs our attention and when, and preventative maintenance so that we don't end up costing taxpayers more down the line.
The second largest portion of your property tax bill is for policing services. Our 200 sworn officers, with the support of more than 30 civilian staff and 11 jailers, respond to and manage over 70,000 calls for police services every year across the CBRM. And despite this number rising by about 5,000 calls annually, our crime rates and crime severity remain lower than both provincial and national averages, as well as other municipalities with similar demographics. We are committed to making sure you live in a safe community. Outside of Halifax, we are the only other full-service municipal police agency in the province. So in addition to our 24/7 patrols, we're equipped with specialty units like our Major Crime Unit, Emergency Response Team, Marine Unit, Forensic Identification Services, and K9, to name a few, that allow us to respond to any type of call or investigative need immediately without having to wait on resources or support from another agency or from another part of the province. Approximately 90% of our annual budget is allocated toward wages. The remaining 10% is for vehicles, fuel, uniforms, equipment, and training. And acting on the recommendations of a recent operational review on police services, we continue to increase efficiencies for our service delivery without increasing our operational budget.
The next largest portion of your property tax bill is mandated provincial transfers. These are costs that municipalities are required to pay the province for services outside the municipality's control, namely education, housing, corrections, regional library costs, and property assessment services. These mandated transfers are based on provincial formulas and represent approximately 13% of CBRM's total annual expenditures. Another 10% of your property tax bill contributes to fiscal services associated with the CBRM short-term debt, long-term debt, and day-to-day banking, the most significant being the cost of borrowing and debt repayments.
8% of your property tax bill is for fire services, which includes fire prevention, emergency management, and emergency response. 71% of that is wages, and 15% is for training and grants paid directly to the volunteer fire departments. The remainder is for things like protective gear, fire suppression and extrication equipment, maintenance and fuel for our fleet, and utility and operating costs for our fire stations. Our budget also includes costs associated with the water supply provided by CBRM's water utility through the many hydrants located throughout the municipality. These costs represent 5% of CBRM's total budget, but are funded by the hydrant rate on your tax bill. CBRM has both career and volunteer fire departments. Career fire operations are in Sydney. Composite stations, which are staffed by a combination of career and volunteer personnel, are in North Sydney, Glace Bay, and New Waterford. And the remainder of CBRM service is provided by our many dedicated volunteer fire departments and hazmat team. All fire departments support one another through response agreements to ensure arrival on scene as early as possible. Fire departments are dispatched through CBRM's own 911 communication center for a variety of emergencies, including fire and motor vehicle accidents, as well as services such as high-angle rescue and ice water rescue.
7% of your property tax bill is for recreation programming and events, maintenance of over 400 park sites and 70 sports fields, and operations of municipally owned facilities such as Center 200, the Glace Bay Miners Forum, and the County Arena. These public services provide social and economic benefits that help build a strong, healthy, and vibrant community where residents of all ages and abilities can enjoy an active lifestyle. We are also a leader in the area of energy efficiency, where current initiatives have led to savings of $2 million annually for CBRM and a significant reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. We continue to work with Efficiency Nova Scotia and within our energy program to further increase efficiency and energy reduction in our buildings and facilities.
The remaining 10% of your property tax bill is for support services essential to the operation of the municipality, including the finance, planning, human resources, technology and communications, and legal departments, as well as the legislative services of the Mayor and Council and the Clerk's office. Wages and contracts make up the majority of these departmental budgets, which, although key to the organization, account for less than 9% of the CBRM's total annual expenditures. With everything that is happening in the community, there is an unprecedented feeling of optimism and investor confidence that will continue to move CBRM forward in a positive way.
This year, we'll wrap up work on CBRM Forward, which aligns our new municipal planning strategy with our economic development strategy. We're doing this by listening closely to residents and businesses, setting goals and objectives to guide future decisions on important issues such as housing, transportation, the environment, and more. Once complete, CBRM Forward, along with our new active transportation plan, will prepare the community for the next 25 years of growth and change. On a day-to-day level, we provide provincially mandated services such as land use planning and building code compliance, which ensure the construction in CBRM meets minimum safety requirements and therefore protects the health and safety of the public when purchasing a new home or starting a business, both in the long term and the short term. Simply put, municipal planning is a growth and change management framework to secure the physical, economic, and social health and well-being of our urban and rural communities.
Municipalities must ensure that we're meeting our responsibilities around the legislative services we are responsible for. Often, the municipality is asked to contribute to services that are not a municipal responsibility and therefore are not included in our tax rate. For example, social services provided by the province, such as healthcare, affordable housing, and poverty mitigations, are extremely important to the community. However, they are not part of a municipality's core responsibilities, and so we don't currently collect taxes to fund them. In addition, external pressures, such as the rising costs of electricity, heating fuel for buildings, insurance, and fuel for our fleet of police, fire, buses, and heavy equipment, are challenges we all face. Lastly, we have to factor in changes in environmental regulations for landfills, greenhouse gases, and wastewater, changes which can come at a significant cost. The fact is, only a very small percentage of our overall budget is for discretionary programs and services. All these pressures need to be carefully managed through either increasing our revenue by raising taxes or decreasing expenditures by reducing services or identifying other operating efficiencies, or finding ways to increase our other revenue sources. Because, unlike other levels of government, municipalities must set a balanced budget. That's why ensuring alignment with the strategic direction of Council and incorporating feedback from public consultations are all important in shaping our overall budget.
CBRM Council has developed a strategic vision based on community consultation with residents and CBRM staff that lays out the 5 priority areas where we believe collaboration and partnerships can build economic and social opportunities for all residents of the CBRM. These priority areas are 1. Economic development, which is about modernizing the municipality's planning and economic development strategies to make CBRM more accessible, more inclusive, and more attractive as a place to invest and do business. 2. A CBRM charter, which is about making sure our municipality has the autonomy and authority, really decision-making power, to chart our own course. 3, the development of our harbors, where we see so much opportunity for growth in Sydney, North Sydney, Louisbourg, and Glace Bay. 4, population growth and inclusivity. Here we're working particularly close with our regional enterprise network through the Cape Breton Partnership, and in particular, the local immigration partnership, in order to grow our population and ensure newcomers feel welcome and that they can actively participate in the economic and social life of our community and make it their community. And 5, diversifying our municipal revenue streams, which means really fine-tuning the operations of the municipality so that as we're steering in this new direction toward a bright new future for the CBRM, we're doing so as efficiently, responsibly, and cost-effectively as possible. It's about finding that balance between being creative and realistic. When combined, these 5 strategic priorities are about collaborating with community organizations, strengthening our relationships with all levels of government, and focusing our collective efforts where we believe we can have the biggest impact. This strategic vision will not sit on a shelf. It is designed to be a living document, brought to life with the input and participation of the community to help us achieve our vision of CBRM as an inclusive, prosperous, vibrant community that embraces culture, diversity, innovation, and at the center of it all, collaboration. To have your say, fill out the survey at cbrm.ns.ca/vision.
So at this point, I'm going to ask the mayor and the CFO to make their way to the stage. And while they're getting comfortable, I'll mention, or I'll re-mention the survey that is linked to at the end of that video. So if you visit cbrm.ns.ca/vision, you'll find a very short survey. It only takes 3 minutes to fill out, and it asks your opinion on those 5 strategic priority areas, whether you agree or disagree, whether or not they should be priorities, or if you feel ambivalent about them. And then there's a 6th question, which just asks, well, it's a blank comment field, so it asks for your comments. So after this meeting, I encourage everyone here to go fill that out, and everyone watching online as well. And for anyone watching online, folks here tonight have a copy of this document, which is the budget consultation document for 2022, and it's a deeper dive into some of the numbers that you see in the video. And so folks watching online can visit cbrm.ns.ca/vision to download this for themselves. So at this point, I'm going to throw it over to the mayor.
Hi, can everybody hear okay? Great. So first of all, welcome to our 3rd and final in-person budget consultation. Happy to be here in Glace Bay. This is the first time I've got to participate in a budget consultation and say I'm here home in Glace Bay, so it's nice to even say that in person more than anything. Just want to make a note as well. We have a couple of the local councillors who had to send their regrets. Unfortunately, they're feeling a little under the weather, but Councillor James Edwards and Councillor Kenny Tracy had full intentions of being here, but yeah, it got them. So just want to make sure as well that for folks that are here, I know before we kind of dive into the actual budget content this evening, just as a quick heads up, being that we're in Glace Bay, there's been a lot of conversation lately around the Hall of Fame. So I wanted to let folks know here and online that we're going to have a little meeting of staff and council representatives tomorrow to start fielding how we find a solution, and we'll be working with that committee to make sure that it's represented well here. Otherwise, we've had a really great couple of sessions to begin with. We're excited to be here, like I said, in the Bay tonight. I know the setup looks a little formal, but we want to keep with the spirit of you know, sitting around a table, having conversations like we've done in years gone by. We have to have this format because of trying to make this session as accessible as possible online, so making sure we're all hooked up to sound and microphones and what have you, but really just want to keep that informality, ask questions. This session is about your thoughts, your questions, your ideas. We have a slew of people here that are eager and ready to answer anything that you have, and if we can't, we'll definitely bring it up. We'll follow up with you afterwards, and all about the community tonight. So a quick note that when you do come up to ask a question, there is a microphone right there. If you don't mind, before asking your question, just stating your name, just so we can have an idea in terms of follow-up and what have you. Anyhow, I'll hand it over to Jen, and then we'll open it up.
Great, I'll be short and sweet. I think the video captured a lot of the nuts and bolts of the municipality's budget as far as departmental expenditures and where your tax bill is spent. Just to echo the mayor's comments, it is really exciting to be in this building after it was just refurbished. I don't think we really had a proper celebration of its reopening, just given due to COVID and whatnot. So it's a beautiful room, and welcome everybody. We appreciate you coming out. It is a small, intimate crowd, but we are very pleased to see those who did come join us for a little budget discussion. We are really excited to hear your input. And it's been our experience that the small, intimate crowds generally garner the most engagement. So we certainly look forward to hearing your comments and questions from as far as the budget goes, as well as service delivery. Senior administration are here to answer any questions that you may have on service delivery or anything pertaining to the upcoming budget. So at this time, I'd open the floor to questions if anyone has any.
Dave Brown. Just kind of talking about, like to talk like, when's Glace Bay going to get some healthy facilities, accessible facilities? Have you been to the tennis court in Glace Bay? Have you guys walked through Glace Bay lately? Like, am I just here a year? Like, you know what I mean? I'm just back here. Like, no one's walking, seeing what, your parks and grounds? Well, who's doing the work, man? Because the park's been the same teeter-totter for 25 years. Come on, man. You guys really gotta, if you want to, like, you gotta really bump it up a little bit here, because Glace Bay is in crumbles. 3 kids I have, there's nothing for them to do. First time I was ever in this building, no family skating. No family skating. Where'd you meet your best friends at? Family skating. The skateboarding park's falling apart. The tennis court, I can't even believe it. I went up there, Little League. They're signing up kids for Little League, and you go up and look at the place where they're going to play. There's no dugouts. The tops are off the dugouts. Come on, man. It's Glace Bay. Let's build a community here. It starts with us, doesn't it? See you later. I said what I had to say. Let's see some changes.
I'm a little short. My name's Margaret Kuchma, and I'm here on behalf of Number 11 Volunteer Society. It kind of relates to what this gentleman was just saying about developing some more community outdoor spaces. We are trying to get a fitness park in Glace Bay going. We have funding for the racetrack and some community gardens and some benches. We also have an outdoor movie theater there. We're coming along really well, but what I was wondering is, does Cbrm help at all in any of that kind of stuff? We're trying to, you know, raise money ourselves, but.
Yep, no, thank you for your question. Absolutely. I do believe that the Councillor Edwards had forwarded on a funding application to the Municipal Grants Committee. We haven't yet met to evaluate those applications because we wait to collect all of them at once so that we can evaluate them all at the same time to give everyone fair opportunity for funding. But we hope to collect all of those and evaluate them by May, so you will certainly hear from the committee on a decision on that application.
I do have my proposal here, and extra in what we've got going that's more than in the proposal you got, simply because I wrote that proposal you had, so this is a little more in-depth if anybody wants to view it later.
Just one thing too, we have a really wonderful resource in Ken LeBlanc on our staff. So Ken spends, he's not here right now, sorry.
Oh,
and
okay.
I feel bad because I'm using his name and he is not here, so sorry, Ken. But Ken has developed a resource as well for community groups, for nonprofit organizations, if they're kind of beginning that process of forming an organization, or if they want to start piggybacking different funding opportunities that are out there. So in this document, he'll have municipal, provincial, federal opportunities, also private opportunities too. So I think back to my time at the Maynooth Coastal Discovery Center, even organizations, or foundations rather, like the Good Foundation. We wrote them a letter one time and they ended up giving us money for 5 years, just because they thought what we were doing had value. So we can connect you with Ken LeBlanc as well, and start kind of piecing together different things. I know especially, and Councillor Edwards is your biggest advocate.
Yes, he's great, isn't
Yeah,
he?
he is so excited about that project, and it is wonderful and well needed in number 11. What we can also do is, take a look at what is happening in other areas too, and connect you with, like, say, Cantley Village folks, and see how they successfully, like Councillor Steve Gillespie was a huge part of that, but how did they piece together the funding that was there?
Right.
And I know the previous gentleman that was speaking, there's another group that's doing some work in the Queen Elizabeth Park, for example. And so I know the agreement is, because that's municipal land, if the community group does the work and upgrades the park, then we can come in and help with some maintenance work. So there's always agreements in that way as well. So as long as it's, there's no end to the conversation that can be had, but we can definitely connect you with folks.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, how you doing? My name's Matt Hooper. I'm here at the Glace Bay Revitalization Association. I'm sorry, I haven't been around too much. I'm away working sometimes, and I got a young family. But just to beat the dead horse, I guess, I mean, it feels like you're doing it yourself sometimes, and you kind of just said it there. If the municipal ground in the park, if we produce a park, you guys will do the maintenance. But kind of like what she was saying, I didn't catch your first name. I'm sorry. Margaret? Okay, like it seems like we try to do these proposals. It's nice to have a supportive councillor. I can't get my guy to write a letter. He offers to sign the one that I write. So it just seems like when I canvass different stores, and I have done fundraising, I had a golf tournament, I got about roughly over $10,000 in an account right now, but I haven't seen any of you guys before. Like I know Darren, I see you guys around, but it'd be nice to kind of get some connection. I know with COVID it's been hard. I would like to have some community meetings like you have here with some more residents to kind of get some input and stuff like that. But this kind of stuff has to happen more often. And when you hear from the older folks, and I say older folks, I apologize, but I met with Kenny McClellan one time, and Dave was there, and he talks about back in the day, there were so many community groups, and the young people had so many role models in church groups and police boys clubs and all different kinds of, Girl Guides. And I mean, this stuff still is around, but with the internet and everyone's kind of home and no one gets together like they used to. So it would be nice, and I think it can happen. I mean, from the people I talk to in the different stores and the leaders in town, everyone wants to help. Everyone wants to donate. Like she said, people want to give money for the reason they want to give money. They want to help small towns. So it feels like we can get the help, and you probably know yourself. I've never met this lady before. I've heard your name, but I know, like, people reach out to help you, but you guys seem to not reach out to help. And it's really odd, and I know the names Ken LeBlanc. I've got them in emails from yourself, Amanda. You've been helpful yourself. I'm not to put anyone down, but it just seems for a town that's, like my buddy Dave said before he left, it's kind of in crumbles. I mean, it's kind of embarrassing. I just spent some time last year at the end there in St. John, New Brunswick, and it's an older town, but it had character, and it was clean, and there was pride there. And I don't know where, but somewhere along the line, we kind of lost that pride, and I don't know where, I really don't, but I think if you can just get a little bit going and let people see what's possible, and once it starts going, it goes, right? Like you see what's going on up in Ingonish and stuff like that, like people want to be here, people want to spend money here, and I'll go on all night because I see a lot of people didn't come to speak. And I understand this is part of the problem, right? Everyone wants to help until it's time to help, but I believe if you get the right people on board and we can collaborate and get the right groups together, the sky's the limit. So it'd be nice to hear from some of you guys, and I know Ken LeBlanc can't be here, Kenny Tracy can't be here, so maybe that's part of the problem too. I don't know, but it just seems like you're doing a lot of the work yourself. And I know by reading through these grants and stuff like that, for a guy that I'm a tradesman, it's overwhelming. Like you're just to read through them and apply, and it's hard. So it'd be nice to get some support on any level. And I'll just leave it at that. But it's nice to meet you guys. I know I've heard your names and stuff like that, so thanks for coming to Glace Bay.
Absolutely. And I think, I feel like we know each other on Facebook, and this is it, right? Because I kind of thought it was you, and I didn't want to say, but but this is it too, right? And so in the last 2 years, The inability to come together has been very problematic, but I like what you're saying though. And you know what? Even if 5 people do show up at a town hall, maybe next time 6 people will show up at another community meeting. And I like the fact that you guys are shaking hands and getting to know each other. That's the point of this stuff too. So great suggestions.
Hey, David Soller, and I actually have 2 questions. And this first one relates to what do you see as the responsibility or the role of the Cbrm when it comes to addressing our poverty and addiction issues, especially in our 3 outlying towns, so North Sydney, Sydney Mines, Glace Bay, Dominion, New Waterford, and Scotchtown. And it's easy to say, I know some people would say that's a provincial issue. However, when it comes to what our mental health and addictions role is, it's really to deal with tier 3 and above, which is people in crisis, and not the prevention side. And so in looking at our communities today, I'm here in Glace Bay, we're pre-COVID running 38.5% child poverty rate. That's not including family poverty or seniors poverty. And I don't know if we always think about that in terms, that means there's 2,200 kids and youth in this town who can't afford any type of recreation or programming that's not free or very low cost. And that's not including their parents and again, our senior population. And when we think about our addiction issues, the Invictus report just came out a few months ago, and I realized it was done for the north side, but talked about how 45% of adults in that community currently say that they're struggling with some kind of addiction. Here in the Cbrm, we're running approximately 400% higher per capita, the amount of people that are in opiate recovery programs. Glace Bay has the highest percentage of naloxone incidents in the province. New Waterford has the highest opiate incident rates in the province. 400% higher, by the way. It's not 10% higher, and it's 400% higher than the rest of the province. And so I know we have so many things we're trying to do when we think about fix our economy, talking about recreation, everything else. But we are also dealing with incredibly high percentage. Really, most of our communities across Nova Scotia have these issues. What makes the 3 communities mentioned stand out is we have such a high portion of our communities that are struggling. And so in the Nova Scotia Health Report, the last one that I could find, it listed the 3 communities in Nova Scotia that have the highest deprivation rates. That would be poverty, opportunity, health, all mixed together. So according to the Nova Scotia government, the 3 communities in Nova Scotia that have the highest deprivation rates are North Sydney, Sydney Mines, Glace Bay, Dominion, New Waterford, Scotchtown. Now, this problem existed long before everyone here was doing their jobs. But this is the communities that we live in. And that was a long way to say, what do you feel that the Cbrm's role and responsibility is, knowing that really it's 40% of our communities plus are struggling with addiction and poverty?
I can kick that off, and I just want to let my colleagues know too, if at any point there's another microphone there, so hop on up and offer your insight as well. Really, my purview is we're the level of government that's closest to the ground. We tend to be the first call by many people, and really we have to be number 1 advocates for our community. So we have the ear of higher levels of government. We need to be saying things honestly and openly. I think from years gone by, it was almost like if you don't want to talk about that problem. You don't want to talk about those issues because if we talk about them, then we have to do something. But things have very, very much changed, and we do talk about this all the time. And we have to figure out how to leverage our resources to get more funding, to get more attention, to get more programming from those higher levels of government. I think to the conversations we were having just this week with Lynn McCarran from the United Way, people who are living in areas like Westmount, even in areas of New Waterford, can't access transit, which is our service, which will get them to the programming that they need to access to have healthier lives. Therefore, you could easily say it's not our responsibility to get people to a transit line, but it is. It is. we're elected officials, we're public servants, this is what we do. We need to use what we have to get more.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks, David, for your comments. I've certainly have seen this over the years, watched it, and it's getting worse, as you point out. There's no question it's a big concern. And as you point out, or I can say, it's never been in our mandate to take responsibility for the things you speak of. But it is getting to be more of an issue. And I don't know exactly what line item we take from our current budget that we can put into that type of budget. As pointed out by the mayor, it's something that we can help, we can partner with. We recently met with the Minister of Housing, and he was wondering how we could help with the housing situation. You know, we've got a book of land that we can help with developers that we could pass off and do some kind of a tax break based on a lower income for families, but we're sort of limited in what we can do. But at the same time, as Amanda points out, we are the lowest level of government, and we do hear it first. And it is a big issue, something that has to be dealt with. I think with the current government, it appears there's a willingness to, we're finally starting to see some help as far as the municipal level goes with funding. We never ever had enough funding to operate this place, really and truly. We've been through, you know, and I watched it from steel plants closed and, you know, coal mines since amalgamation. And, you know, we started out with 105,000 people, we're down to 92. But my point is we lost so much here. So we've been just getting by year after year, and really our infrastructure has been getting worse and falling apart, and we're doing the best we can with what we got. So in order for us to add another level, you know, in our level of the things you just seen in the budget, we need funding. And it appears that we're on the road to getting more funding, and I'm hoping that we can do more to help with this situation, because it is very serious. Thank you.
Jen just pointed out an example of what the municipality can do to help further those goals, Dave. So the Seton project on the north side is a really good example of how we can participate in a project, be a true partner, help with things like acquiring land or using our own land, but also being the caveat to help get more funding at the other levels. We had a conversation today just about these projects too. Even if it's a letter sometimes, and I know that sounds really insignificant, but if there's a letter coming from the municipality saying, we support this project in principle, we might not have $1 million to go behind it, but we want to be there, that gives it some teeth often. But really, I think you don't have to preach to the choir here. This council, and I've seen it time and time again, their hearts are in it. We will find ways to support, but we ask for patience in trying to find those ways sometimes.
Thank you very much. I guess my second question, it's related, and maybe you've partly answered this. I know some of the frustration with people in our community is when the community groups are looking for help, they ask, and basically we get given, here's something you can go apply for, here's a bunch of paperwork. And this is one of the things I discovered this year. We, of course, many people here know, we've been working on some large-scale grants for Glace Bay. And what I've realized through the process, that it's actually impossible to do, like on our own, as a nonprofit community group. And I really feel like so many of the community groups that are here are faced with the same thing. They say, we need help, we'd love to do this for our community. And the truth is, when speaking about, and Councillor Aaron, you really summed up there, I don't believe that the Cbrm has the answers and the funds to do all this stuff. Like in Glace Bay, if you wanted to just have the capacity to have programs for all the children living in poverty, like we don't have the infrastructure or the space to have programs for 2,200 kids and youth per week. However, all our community groups being healthy and funded is actually a piece of the answer. And so the idea that the community groups in our that are here right now, I've got to meet with most of them over the past couple of years most struggle to exist. Most are like fighting, trying to get a $5,000 grant, $10,000 grant here and there. And we don't have the skill set to do it. So today we were in a meeting talking about one grant that we're working for in this town. We could not do that on our own. We actually had to pull in 3 community groups, pull in I don't know how many favors, because the amount of work that it takes to apply for some of these things is incredible. And so this week here in Glace Bay, I know we've been talking on Facebook and complaining all together about different things. And I saw so many people talking about, did you see what this community got, how much recreation money went to here and there? And the truth is, we here in our community can't apply for those things because we don't have the skill sets or the means or the time, because most of the people running our nonprofits are already working other jobs. And just saying, here's something to apply for, actually doesn't help at all. And so when I was thinking about what would help the most, so this is maybe a question, but also a suggestion, that we actually have great people in all of our outlying communities who I believe if they were empowered and had the funds behind them could actually accomplish a lot of what we're talking about. The problem is that they don't have the means or the expertise, the time, etc. And really anywhere, any communities I think across Canada that have, when I think of a transformation project, it really was, the city was a big part of it, but they came alongside and figured out how can we help, instead of just saying here's an application form, that there was actually a team and staff that job was to make the community groups successful so they could increase capacity. And so when I think about the millions of dollars that were given to other communities across Nova Scotia this week for recreation projects, the truth is all those places had, I bet every one of them had an amazing application and had a great team of people that put a great presentation together to get those funds. And so I feel like sometimes we're not asking for those types of things or even thinking that it's possible because we feel it's beyond our scope. However, when I think about what the Cbrm could do, is if there was some positions, because in reality, a couple years ago, there was a Glace Space revitalization plan done, said we need $20 million. That's so under, we need a lot more than $20 million. One project can cost $20 million. But a lot of community groups being successful and the Cbrm being a point person instead of saying, here's something that you can apply for, but then helping the community groups learn how to apply and teaching community groups how to get funds and partnering with the community groups to make them successful. That I think our community has great community leaders who, if all the project they were working on were actually funded well. And so I think one of the best things that the Cbrm could do is actually create positions whose only thing was to help our community groups, non-profits, et cetera, become successful and actually then address the fact that we have thousands of kids and families in our community. And it's not a big cost to Cbrm, but if the Cbrm could invest something, it could actually help us bring the millions of dollars we actually need to increase the infrastructure that we need here in Glace Bay, New Waterford, and other communities. So I don't know if that's not really a question, but
no, but you know what? That's it though. That's empowering community, Dave. And it made me think about, and Colleen sitting there from the Cape Breton Partnership, we have a regional enterprise network. Okay, sorry, you're here from Lewisburg. But we have a regional enterprise network, and primarily the function of the regional enterprise network is to help with economic development. But to me, there is no economic development if you don't have that social fabric, if you don't have that social support in your community. So I haven't talked about this with anybody on council, but it might be worthwhile exploring options within our REN to see if there is capacity to do that training, to do that skill set strengthening for community groups. And like my career before this was all nonprofit. So Dave, like the pages and pages and pages of application forms, the pre-application book that you have to know so you can learn the lingo to put in the application, and then wait a minute, hold on, I have to meet with these different objectives, but does this work? I get it, like it's horrendous, and then only to be told no 9 times out of 10, right? It's frustrating, it pushes you back, so I would like to propose to our council that we have those conversations about maybe we look at our REN and make sure that social component and community component is in there, because without that, you have no economic development. Mr. McKeegan.
Good day. My name is David McKeegan, and a couple of common things tonight is there's a lot of Daves here, and we all volunteer. And also, too, I don't know if you guys noticed, but most of the people talking here tonight are community volunteers. And we're the ones that do the work in town, and we find that we're left on our own, like Matt had said. Not forgetting that the Cbrm has spent a lot of money in the last number of years on the Bayplex, the new police station. There's new water waste treatment plant going there. There's the Savoy and the Miners Museum. So a lot of money has been spent. But in the meantime, a lot of stuff has been let go. And Parks and Ground Bill, man, I'm telling you, things are bad. People are afraid to walk around Wenwick Brook after the middle of July until the elephant ears die, because they're afraid. It's not safe after dark. And actually, one old gentleman asked me one time if the elephant ear was the official flower of Cape Breton, Cbrm, because it's overgrown. You can't even see the benches, you can't see the garbage cans, and there's the skateboard park. The elephant ears, again, they're growing up higher than the skateboard park, and that's up high. There are 10 lights in the parking lot there. 9 of them are burnt out and have been for over a year. Who's checking on this stuff? Are volunteers? Is it up to us to call the Cbrm and check? It shouldn't be. Everything we had in Glace Bay got moved to Sydney. All the offices, direct offices, everything. And we're missing that. We don't have that connection anymore. So my question, I guess, is, the bridges at Renwick Brook, when are they going to get fixed? We've been hearing that for years now. They put friggin' plates of steel on it to cover up the holes. They need to be fixed. And so let's start spending some of the money, and I don't think it's going to cost a lot, in bringing stuff back to where it was. We have a lot of kids. I do doctor recruitment with Bay It Forward. And one of the things the doctors want, they want physical activity and a safe place to bring their kids and raise their kids. They love the Coal Town Trail, new trail they can run during their lunch hours. I'm afraid to show them anything else, seriously. We try to avoid that. We take them on the harbor, take them out in the boat to look at the coastline. So I think it's up to the Cbrm. You have to start doing something to bring Glace Bay back to where it was. So I guess most of my question is going to go with you, Bill. What are you going to do to help bring the stuff back? Because I think that falls under you, isn't it? Please. Or what? Maybe something scheduled and I don't know.
Thank you. Again, my name is Bill Murphy. I'm Director of Parks, Grounds, Buildings, and Facilities. The Recreation Master Plan actually was created in 2014 and actually presented us with a roadmap on primarily reorganizing the department to really respond more to disciplines of facilities and programs and opportunities for various sectors. So the reorganization of the department really focused on seniors, youth programming, and really facility improvement. Part of the challenge for the municipality is that most of the facilities that we're currently using in outdoor spaces were really developed in the early 1970s, and were all developed with stimulation from government money, and were all developed at the exact same time. 40 years later, those facilities are actually failing all at the same time. This was brought up at the budget discussion presentations that really provided council with information from our perspective on really the action requirement is more about regenerating these facilities. How do we do that? We actually do it through community cooperation. The lady that talked about number 11 Park is really the go-forward plan for us as well. The municipality can't replace all these facilities on their own, and they need external resources. What we have been saying is that we need to take the stimulus money that we have and match it with government resources, both provincially and federally, to reinstitute these facilities. In pockets of places in the municipality, this is being done. It's being done through education and the cooperation of the schools. It's being done in the Waterford, as an example, through the community concept. So the facilities are slowly getting reinstated. However, David, your point on Queen Elizabeth Park, the municipality in the park itself does basic maintenance to keep the facility as safe as we can, but doesn't have the capital priority itself to start initiating a replacement of major park facilities and amenities. So we're continuing to work with community groups on small initiatives. For example, there's a group in Queen Elizabeth Park talking about a playground improvement. So we will support those kinds of initiatives with complementary capital money to match the existing effort of the community and hopefully develop the facilities that way. It includes tennis courts, it includes things like skateboard parks. Again, we are developing a plan to reinstate the major used parks as well. One of the things that happens in a community is that interests also change year over year, so that something that's popular this year may not actually be popular the next year. We're finding things like pickleball for seniors is a really popular activity that is growing right across the country. We're trying to obviously harness our energy in that initiative as well to respond to community need and demand. So it really is a big challenge. As far as the elephant ears, unfortunately, they came here from Bluesburg when Renwick Brook Park was developed. It was a way of infilling the property, and unfortunately those things came at a very negative experience for the local residents. They're not easy to eliminate. They grow rapidly. There are many facilities in the area that really have these things in and around them because it was used as cheap fill, as a way of getting fill put in low-lying areas and swampy areas, as a way of building it up, so it became a recreation activity. It's a challenge. Certainly, I wasn't aware that they're growing as high as some of the highlands in the area. So I'll certainly, from this meeting, take that information back to our department, and hopefully we'll have a plan to address, at least in the short term, some of the view planes. So really, that's my long-winded answer.
I'll show you pictures before you leave.
Great, thank you.
Okay. And also, too, in the last couple of months, no, this is not for you, Bill, you're good now.
Oh,
in the last, I don't think it is anyway, no. In the last couple of months, we've lost 2 businesses on Commercial Street with Tallow and Early's, and Subway is getting ready to move. And one of the biggest things, their biggest complaints is there's no handicap parking. They have to park in a parking lot next door, which kind of defeats the purpose of handicap parking, I think, if they can't park in the street. And plus they have those bump outs that take up 9, 10, maybe 12 parking spots that those businesses could really use to allow the customers to park on the street, because it's a one-way street. So in the 2017 study, I think part of the study was to remove those. So I guess, Wayne, this is your question. I think, where are we at with those?
Thank you for the question. Wayne McDonald, Director of Engineering and Public Works. It's interesting when you talk about 2017 report. I was involved way back when we did the downtown Glace Bay revitalization that started those changes, when it went from 4 lanes to, or 2 lanes and 2 parking lanes to 2 travel lanes and 1 parking lane, and all of the connections from the roads behind, from Brody and that side, and a vibrant farmers market that was there at that time. As part of those designs, that was very clearly at the time worked with the Glace Bay Commercial Street Business Association at the time. It was a design and a thought that would bring the community from the back parking area out to the front, additional widened sidewalks, and that was kind of the thing that was done at that time. They do provide some kickouts. We can certainly look at what can be completed there with the existing spaces that are available. We routinely, through the Traffic Authority, identify if there's additional spaces that can be converted over to accessible spaces, but to change the kickouts after I think we just paved the downtown area just recently, I would hate to go down and dig it up again. However, we are looking at those plans moving forward on how we would change the next time it's redone.
Thank you. Thank you. And Robert would attest that there's a lot of cars trying to squeeze in, and their arse ends, I guess, are sticking out all the time. So it is a danger down there, too. Okay, now my next time, I'm not done yet. My next one, and I don't know who this falls under, but we just got a new sign, Welcome to Glace Bay sign. There used to be a light shining on it. Now the wires are hanging down. There's no light shining on it anymore. We used to have the decorative lamppost on Commercial Street. They were all pushed back, right? You know, that saved them getting beaten up. We didn't find out until it was almost too late this year, because we used to plug our Christmas lights in them. And we almost didn't, well, we only did a little bit this year for Christmas because we had no power. So they moved the poles back, and there's no power to them. Like, somebody explained that one to me. Like, you know, and then when I asked the gentleman, the electrician, he said, well, Sony put power on the poles over there. He's across the street. I said, yeah, that was paid for. We did that for the, and we can't run extension cords across the street, so that's not happening. And I also hear rumor that they're taking the light, they're removing all of the light fixtures in back of town on Brody Avenue, getting rid of what's left there, I guess, because, you know, downtown is dark and dingy, and it's not a safe place at night. We left our Christmas lights on the trees down there, the white ones, because we figured make it a little safer for people who walk through town. So there's a lot of work to be done, and you guys keep talking plans. When are these plans going to come to fruition? When are we going to get things done? You know, that's the thing. And like everybody else has said, it's been years now. We've seen it for years. So thank you.
So what I'm hearing is a need for lots of follow-up. And I think, and again, we're just kind of getting into this meeting here tonight, but that community social side of things, but also that economic development side of things in business. It is, like, I live up the road, so I get it. But what I can offer is some follow-up sessions, like I said, with our regional enterprise network to talk about downtown. It is super sad to see Tim Hortons empty for how many years now. It's heartbreaking. It's a huge space, and right? It's right in the center. And what happens when one business closes, and unfortunately we've had this in combination with 2 horrible years of COVID, the businesses just close one after another. So if we can talk about that with our REN, maybe there's some strategies. A lot of interest in the island, they go first to our REN and they say, hey, we're looking for space. We need this, you know, X amount of square feet. We need kitchen. We need this. If there's something we can do to help support Glace Bay and really identify the opportunities, for sure, our REN is very, very good at that. Sorry, I don't want to take away from no, Dave, you have to go to the people, so people can hear online, just to make it fair, you have to go to the microphone.
Hi, how are you? My name is Hector Morrison. I lived in Tablehead, Stirling area all my life, and presently I'm living where I was born at. My mother died a couple of years back, and I bought the house, renovated, and did work on it. But I'm here to speak on infrastructure, or lack thereof. Now, in the Tablehead area in the past several years, there have been a lot of paving done, I'll give you that. But one of the main arteries in Tablehead is Upper North Street. It's where the pensioners' hall is, and there's streets that are branching off there. Now, I was told a couple of years ago by my counselor that maybe by 21, 22, they're going to be paving that road. Their intention is that they're going to build a sewage plant down on North Street. Now, I don't know if that's going to come to fulfillment or not. I was raised there. We've been dumping excrement off of Lower North Street, Upper North Street, down on the bottom where the pipes are for the last 70 years, 60 years. That road hasn't been done in the last, I guess it was last done in the 60s when they were dumping stone from 20 Colliery down at the stone dump. You guys may be too young to remember that. But they were dumping stone down there, and they called it stone dump. They went out about a quarter of a mile, maybe even more. That's when that road was last done. It might have had patchwork done to it, in the last 50 years, but that's about it. One of the reasons why I'm here is that Sydney Street, 2 years ago, they went up there and they revamped Sydney Street. They put all new driveways in. They did the road. They did paving up there. And a year later, the very next year they came down, they dug it all up. Now, it cost money. I'd like to know from my counselor someday when I speak to Darren, on a friendly terms. Darren and I we're on friendly terms. I don't mean anything derogative about that. But I'd like to know what it costs to do that one year and then dig it up the next year and do it again, when I've been asking Darren and Sean McClellan and a couple of more in the Cbrm, when are we going to get this road Upper North Street paved. Now, last year I was told we were going to get it done, maybe 21, 22. We're in the latter part of March right now. There's no indication as of yet. Now, you guys are privy to that information. I'm not. You might know, you do know a whole lot more than I do. That's why I'm here tonight, to get those answers. That is there a possible chance of getting that street done? That street is terrible. It's absolutely terrible. They put new water pipes in there a few years back, and they paved it, and they since subsided. And every time there's a trailer goes down that road, or every time there's a truck goes down that road, or every time there's a town truck goes down that road, all you can hear is the bang, the bang, the bang, the bang. You know, we're all getting older. We all like to have a little bit of peace, but I don't like that kind of noise coming from the street. You know, I can understand traffic coming down, but that road is terrible. My question is, rather than take up more of your time, my question is, can you tell me if that road is going to be paved? And maybe Darren and I will be on good speaking terms this year if it is. But I would like to know if it's going to be paved. Now, I was told in the last 2 years that it would be paved. I was also told, and I'm not at the risk of repeating myself, that we're going to get a sewage system at the bottom of North Street that's going to take that sewage excrement that we're dumping over into the ocean and do away with that. This is 2022. I mean, we shouldn't even have that in this day and age. So if there's answers there forthcoming for me, I would appreciate them. I'd like to see that road paved possibly before my untimely demise, and maybe that can be done, you know, who's to say? But I'd like to see it done. I don't know if it's going to be done this year, but hopefully it will be done this year. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your questions. Wayne McDonald again. I guess I'll talk about the wastewater first. And we're pretty proud of being very successful with a pretty significant capital infrastructure approval a few years ago. We've been moving forward with a wastewater plan that really, in the early days of early 2000s, seemed to be very unattainable. No chance of getting those things done without funding. Even to the point that some of the projects were so large that we wouldn't even have Cbrm share for them. The Glace Bay Fort Morion wastewater project, which we're currently working on right now, ended up with full funding from both provincial and federal governments. The total project is about $100 million. That's very, very significant for Cbrm, one of the largest projects we've ever had. So you're correct. With that project, all of the outfalls, every untreated outfall in the Glace Bay area is going to be collected and treated to national standards. Glace Bay and Port Morion were designated very early on in the process, which is very early 2000s, as a high-risk, both high-risk systems. They were required to be completed by 2021. We're past 2021, but at least the projects are moving forward. The funding is approved, and we're in early stages of that. I know there's some tenders going out for collector pipes very, very soon. That'll be started this year. The plant, you may not see the plant built for a few years, but some of these very large projects take a number of years to complete. As to your other question on the roads, I think, you know, when we talk about wastewater and we talk about the fact that we're very reliant on both federal and provincial funding, very, very seldom do we receive funding associated with roads. We sometimes can get some funding for underground infrastructure, but it's been numerous years since we've been able to get funding for roads. And as an example, local roads, which are, you know, roads outside of your downtown area, not your collectors, not your arterials, not your highways. The local roads are one of the biggest complaints that we do have across Cbrm. And as an example for this year, for the capital budget, which isn't approved currently, we have approximately 131 local roads that need to be completed today. That would cost about $31 million. We're moving forward with the budget with the worst, I believe 16 or 17 of those. And we keep doing worse first. We keep moving forward as best we can, but we're very much reliant on other levels of government, and that's the only way we get some of these projects done. So we do our best to try and submit applications as much as possible. Whenever funding calls come out, we change projects to make them qualify for funding. We were chasing water mains around on streets that needed to be redone so that we could get funding for the water mains on those particular streets. They may not have been our worst water mains, but they may have been our worst roads, or vice versa. So we try and get creative with those applications, and certainly the funding is very important. That's a long-winded response to your questions.
No, Hector, it's not, unfortunately. No. Yeah. The issue is, Hector, just so you know, part of that sewer treatment that Wayne is talking about, it has started. A lot of the groundwork has started. They've separated some storm sewers and Table Head just recently. But the main sewer line is going to run through your street, North Street. So it's going to come down Vivian, it's going to go on north, and then go up Ocean Avenue, and I believe it's Essex Street is where it'll shoot out to go up to where the new plant will be at Fisherman's Park. That's the story. So as you pointed out on Sydney Street, what took place there, we had a bad sewer situation there, and unfortunately, it breaks my heart every time I see, you know, when we do a street and we got to dig it up. It's a sad day for me. I usually stop and I say, "What are you doing pulling my road apart?" You know, and the boys laugh. But anyway, it's the nature of it. But that sewer treatment plant is underway. Unfortunately, as pointed out, there won't be a drop of sewer going into our ocean in a couple of years. So that's great news. It's starting at Bridgeport. It's going to go down Wallace's Road, lower Wallace's Road, where that outfall goes out. That's going to be picked up, pumped up the number 2 in the hub. There's another station there, pumped up past your place in Table Head, right into the new system. So we're pretty happy about that. And as Wayne pointed out, only for the provincial and federal government, it wouldn't have been possible because it's a $100 million job to do that one and Port Morion. So, you know, I'm sorry to tell you, it's not this year, Hector. Thank you.
Thanks, folks. Are there more questions?
I have some from online.
Oh, do you mind if we do the online ones really
No,
quick?
no, you go ahead.
Okay, sorry.
About the economic development, you talk about taxes, and I know I'm a bit avid, and I talked to Darren online about the property taxes, and I kind of get the crappy end of the stick, pardon my language, on that one, because mine's nowhere near the average that you guys had up there. As a young father and a young family, and you talk about Commercial Street and the state it's in, and you talk about business development and what attracts people down there, and I invite you all to drive through there on the way home. Like you said, there's still the Christmas lights up there. But anyway, is there anything in the Cbrm's plan or forecast of the property tax? I know it's been talked about at council meetings before about removing the cap and all this kind of stuff. And is there anyone here that can speak to that? Or is there any kind of breaks for people to come to town? Is there any kind of business tax breaks for any kind of young, I know there's resources in Sydney and that kind of stuff, but is there anything to attract people to Glace Bay rather than to scare them away?
So I can attempt to answer, and folks can absolutely chime in. When it comes to the tax incentives for businesses in the downtown core, there is a program. It's a phased-in tax approach for people who are going in, renovating businesses, creating new businesses. In the 5 historic downtowns and in the industrial parks. And I don't want to mess that up. So Michael Roos, I'm looking at you. So there is a tax incentive program, and that was legislated through the provincial government 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, 4 years ago maybe. When it comes to property taxes, like we're the same. I moved to Glace Bay 3 years ago, and
I pay between $5,000 and $10,000. Like it's equal to my mortgage. I have 3 small children. I work at a province to live here.
Right.
It's crazy, right?
And so there has been an effort for many, many years to look at that property tax cap and understand that it's not just the younger families that are being impacted by this, because I'm telling you, some of the worst phone calls I get in my office are seniors who say to me, "Hey, got rid of the big house because we want to downsize. Went and bought a smaller house down the road. My taxes are triple what I was paying because the cap came off." So the problem is, we actually don't have the authority to remove the cap, right? We advocate, we advocate, we advocate. Our staff have done a tremendous amount of work and research on what that would look like if we implemented a new taxation program. It would be a phased-in approach over between 7 to 10 years.
7 to 10, yeah.
Ultimately, a reduction in taxes, but also having those protections in place for spike protections, low income, and I don't like to say just seniors, but low income.
Fixed income.
To be treated fairly in the tax system. If you go online and look at the tax cap map, it drives me crazy, hey?
Yeah, my neighbors is going down for some reason. Like, this is, I can't, it's,
Yeah.
it boggles my mind. Like, it's a hard one to swallow, and I mean, it's one of the hardest ones at our supper table. It's, what are we doing here? Like,
I remember when we were looking at our house, looking for a house here in Glace
Yeah.
Bay, and the sweethearts who owned it before us left a copy of all their bills. And I say the story, and my husband said it's okay. But they left copies of all their bills out there to give us an idea what we would anticipate for
Exactly.
oil, electricity, the propane, things like that. And then the tax was there, and Kev was like, "Oh man, that's wicked! Like that's no problem." I laughed at him, and I'm like, "No,
Yeah.
that's capped.
Yeah.
Give me 5 minutes, I'll call Jen and get you the real deal."
Yeah.
And he was gobsmacked, right? And so I think there is an education component, but there has to be an advocacy component as well. There is an organization, the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities, that have been advocating for this for years and years. Again, ultimately, at the end of the day, it's the provincial government that had to put the legislation in and let us do this.
Yeah, well, it'd be nice to see if it was tackled on, I've seen different models where, you know, different, for seniors, you keep them, like, there's different ways to do it rather than black and white and you're capped and you're not capped. I know it's not your.
Oh, no. It's so unfortunate because I feel like
It's
we're coming.
hard for young families. Like, you talk population growth,
Yeah.
and it's hard, right? And it's, again, an education point, because you do get the seniors, people are totally oblivious to it, and then
Until the last
whammo.
minute,
Yeah,
yeah.
until the bill comes.
And we work with the Realtors Association too, because that education component was lacking for many, many years. So
Oh, no
making sure
doubt.
that people understand when they purchase houses, what that taxation is going to change
Exactly.
is imperative, yeah.
So if you were to, is there an average, if you were to buy a new home today with the cap removed, is there an average, could you fetch a guess at what the average, 5,000 or above?
It would depend on the
It would depend on the
sale.
assessed value, but with your average home at 106,000, you must have an average figure, I'm sure. Darren likes to talk about this one.
Well, Matt, it's
It's painful.
Yeah, it's the most unfair tax that ever happened in the province, okay?
Yeah.
It's, they took a problem that was happening along the shorelines in South Shore area in particular, where the Nan and Pops were in homes, and because the property values were raising because there were people going in paying big dollars, it drove it up. So instead of fixing that issue, they created this system now that's just unfair across the province. We know that if the cap was lifted tomorrow, we could drop our tax rate by 20%. So your rate here is 209 in Glace Bay, mine's 208. Your rate would be $1.68, okay? So what you do to find out how much that would help you, go to your assessed value, not your cap value, look at the assessed value on your property, multiply that by the $1.68. That'll tell you what you would pay if the cap was gone, right? So we are trying hard to get rid of this cap. It's totally unfair. It's stopping young families from building homes, as Amanda said, from seniors from downsizing. It's ridiculous. It has to go, so.
Well, not only that, and I think it was you that spoke to it, you're scared to death to fix your step or to put a shed in because you're scared
Yeah.
someone's,
Right.
you know what I
Exactly.
mean? So again, you're talking
Yeah.
about a problem that compounds a problem.
It
It's
really
almost-
does. You're right, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's
Thanks.
all I got.
Thank you for bringing it up, though, because it's a tough conversation, right? And again, the education component is super important, but the advocacy work needs to be ramped up. More questions? Go ahead, absolutely. Okay, can you speak at the micro, solely because there's people online wanting to participate in the
I
conversation?
wasn't going to get up to the mic again, but the minute they mentioned cap, that triggered something in me. 2 years ago, they had a meeting in Sydney at the regional municipality building on the Esplanade. And it was about the cap. Everybody's saying how unfair it is. But the cap was put in 1995 to alleviate some of the financial burden on the mom and dad homeowners. the landowners were coming in from overseas, especially the Germans. They were coming into Nova Scotia and they were buying up property at major property buys. The taxes and the assessments skyrocketed so that the people that were living in that proximity, they couldn't pay their taxes. So they went to the government to see if they get some relief from their money that they're paying on their exorbitant taxes. So they implemented the cap. Now there's 80% of the people in the regional municipality are on the cap. There's about 20%, if I'm not wrong, or maybe more. Right on. They're not on the cap. Now, in my eyes, it's not fair to penalize, and as far as the cap, I think, as my feelings about it, the cap is fair. Because I'm a senior citizen on a fixed income on the cap. Now, like Darren says, the cap is unfair. That's his prerogative to say that. It's mine to say that it is fair. But when you're talking about removing the cap, you're talking about removing 80% of the residents, taxpayers of this CBRM off of the cap. And you're putting the 20%, you're going to satisfy them, you're going to appease them over the 80% that's on the cap. I hope I never see the cap being brought up by this regional municipality again as a way of increasing taxes. If you want to increase taxes in this CBRM, for one thing, charge Nova Scotia Power on every pole they got on this island, charge them in CBRM, charge them for every shack they got on this island, charge them for every input, every power station they got here, charge them instead of charging them in lieu of taxes. Instead of letting them get away with blue murder. But don't come ahead and go ahead and say, okay, we're going to go to the ratepayer again, or the taxpayer, the senior citizens, people can't afford it, and we're going to remove the cap, and we're going to even it out, and as Darren said, there's an increase financially by removing the cap. The last meeting we had in the CBRM, they said that financial gains were neutral. It would balance out. Well, it doesn't balance out, because when I figured it out then, I would be paying more. If I paid $1, I'd still be paying more. My heart sympathizes with people that are young, that are trying to build a new home and pay for their taxes. I do. But like I was about to say before, if the regional municipality they want to get more revenue from taxes, let them initiate a program that's going to give them more revenue from taxes, but don't take it from the senior citizens. Don't take it from the 80% of the people that are on the cap right now to appease 20%. Find your tax dollars from other means. And like I said, start with Nova Scotia Power. Why is everybody scared to touch Nova Scotia Power? The Nova Scotia government won't touch them either. They're paying taxes, they're paying a grant in lieu of taxes. That's what they're paying. If I'm wrong, I'll stand to be corrected. But I think they're paying a grant instead of taxes. And they should pay for every electric pole that they have. They should pay for every building that they have. And if you did that, then the revenue coming from that alone would be enough to drop the taxes on the young people that are trying to make ends meet and trying to build a home and trying to pay taxes at the same time. Like I said, I wasn't going to get up here today at the mic twice. I don't want to wear out my welcome. But like I said, I came down with the see if I was going to get my street paved. I'm not going to get that done. And then that young man brought up the cap. But I don't blame him. I don't have any animosity towards him for suggesting that the cap should be removed or find a simpler way. But as far as I'm concerned, the cap was put in there for a reason. It was put in 1995 to alleviate the financial burden on the taxpayers, the ratepayers, such as myself. And I don't think that something that was good in 1995, all of a sudden in 2022, turns adverse. I don't believe that. If it was good then, it's good now. So like I said, I hope this regional municipality doesn't go that route down the road that they're going to contemplate doing away with the cap. Thank you very much. That's it for tonight.
Yeah, we continue to hear a lot of concerns on both sides of people who are affected by the cap. I think to Darren's previous comments, Councillor Bruckschwager's previous comments, you really have to do the calculation of what your tax bill would be if the cap were removed, the tax rate reduced, and applied to your market value. Because just because your property is capped doesn't necessarily mean that you're benefiting from the cap. So you really have to go through that exercise. As for Nova Scotia Power, I can't disagree with you at all. We don't have the authority under provincial government legislation to levy additional taxes on Nova Scotia Power. We are at the mercy of the province for the grant in lieu that we receive for Nova Scotia Power, unfortunately.
Our sage and wise.
And unfortunately, Hector, when they privatized, when they took it away, that was part of the stipulations that went in place, and that way they were supposed to keep rates at a reasonable, that was part of the original deal. Yeah, that's right. We know how that turned out. But just back to the cap for 1 second, Hector, if I could. That 80%, as Jennifer pointed out, they all don't benefit, like, because of the cap. It's the tax burden is being shifted to the low-income person, okay? And that's the biggest problem with the cap. Like, we've got properties assessed at, $750,000 who are capped at $300 and $350. Those are the properties, the people that can afford, that got that. We got to get at them, not people like yourself. And I think you and I did that exercise. I think you would save a few bucks without the cap, as I recall, right? So it's really and truly, it's a terrible setup. No.
So
We'll do it again.
If you want to speak, just speak into microphones, like I said, just to be respectful of those who are not in the room and participating online. More questions?
So speaking of online, we do have a couple of questions that came in online, and I'll remind anyone who is watching on YouTube that you can submit questions via communications@cbrm.ns.ca. So I have a few questions from someone named Corey D. Giobi. I apologize if I didn't pronounce that properly. The first is, with the most pressing issue in the world being the environment, it seems it is always an afterthought in municipal budgets. Would CBRM be willing to look at an environmental department in the future for setting policies and educating citizens independent of other departments? The CBRM should allocate more money for climate change.
I can't look Wayne McDonald in the eye right now. We have been having some topic-specific meetings on climate change adaptation and mitigation, relying heavily on our eco-partners in the community, but on a personal level, and this is not a council level per se, we haven't made a decision to talk about this necessarily, but we do need to have that in-house expertise. Relying on the community all the time, it really puts you at arm's length when it comes to, right, okay, when we're talking about planning projects, when we're talking about strategic vision, when we're talking about 5-year plans, making sure that climate change and environmental responsibility is top of mind. Khalid Ibrahim from our efficiency officer, is that the correct?
Khalid Ibrahim, yes.
He is remarkable. He is absolutely remarkable and has really brought the municipality leaps and bounds in terms of efficiency. Completely humble, would never pat himself on the back, but has done a tremendous amount, not only for our carbon footprint, but reducing the costs of operating buildings as well. So I feel like we are taking small steps. Would love to have an environmental department, but I can't look at my colleagues in the eye by saying that that's a hefty cost.
Maybe I can just add a few comments, Mayor. So a lot of our departments, municipal services, do have an environmental portion associated. All of the potable water, the water utility, wastewater treatment, solid waste, they're all environmental. There's a lot of environmental operating budgets and capital budgets being spent. We do a lot, and we have completed a lot of things over the years. What we don't do a very good job at is keeping track of all of those things. Every time we reduce a greenhouse gas emission requirement. For many years, we were doing those things without calculating. One thing that came on board, certainly between both my department and the buildings folks, is we partnered with Efficiency Nova Scotia, and we set a 2015 energy baseline. Every time we change a light bulb to a HVAC unit, to put in some kind of a heat recovery system, it's now baselined back to 2015. Those those were aimed at, certainly not only the environmental benefits that come from those, but really at operational cost reductions. And I know it was mentioned in the video, we're saving approximately $2 million a year in energy costs. When we started, we were at about $10 million of energy costs across Cbrm, so 20% is pretty good. And I think that number is actually doesn't reflect it entirely, because energy costs, as we all know, are more expensive today than they were back in 2015. So we do a lot of things within the engineering public works, the building maintenance side of things that are environmental based. Every time we apply for a fund, whether it's any large funding components, we have to perform environmental lenses. There's a lot of environmental things that happen. So as far as we have it, I think a lot of my department is environmental based, but certainly with climate change and with green funds that are available, that directs us to those things. And really, you can't go any further than transit. There's such an environmental lens with transit and saving greenhouse gases as well, so another component for Cbrm.
Thanks, Wayne. Okay, so question 2. Cbrm should make sidewalks a priority on streets with daycare centers. How is priority for sidewalk and road repair evaluated in the Cbrm? Not only being a huge part of Cbrm's active transportation plan, this could also be a safety issue.
Certainly a very good question. So sidewalks in Cbrm, they are definitely connected through to our active transportation program. However, our existing sidewalk network is another component, like roads, that very seldom do we receive funding. So we have to deal with, within our own budgets, to deal with some of those. I believe we're in year 3 of an initiative through Cbrm Mayor and Council who have allowed us to provide about $1 million a year to rehabilitation. That's repairing existing sidewalk networks across Cbrm. And it's certainly not the number we would want to have in a perfect world, but it's something, and it's getting things completed consistently year over year. Our priority are based on the downtown areas of sidewalks in areas that are connected with our active transportation network, and the remaining sidewalks would be something of development over many, many years. We don't have a lot of new roads being built, new extensions. Most of them are subdivisions, but we certainly take a look at our partners with the provincial government when they're doing some road work, whether or not there's a portion of sidewalk that we would want to include. Majority is rehabilitation, but extensions do come in the form of active transportation routes.
Thanks again, Wayne. Okay, so question number 3. When you mention development of harbors, what does this entail?
Oh, well, what doesn't it entail? I think the idea is looking at our harbors not only for their commercial opportunity and value, but also for the recreational opportunity. I know even last night somebody threw out the idea of the old Westmount Ferry. That is development of harbor usage. But really, what we see in Lewisburg, for example, and in Glace Bay, hopefully soon, is we're seeing cruise ships come in. We're seeing opportunity for tourism businesses to take up and off. We're seeing a way to commercialize our harbors and use our best trait, which is our tourism. So really, looking at the lands that we own around the harbors, looking at the harbors themselves, and helping to push that internationally. We are in a really, really fantastic area because we have space. We have land, we have beautiful, beautiful natural resources, and they're untapped. We don't, however, market that well as a commercial opportunity. And so when we say looking at our harbors as an investment possibility, I see no end to the possibilities. I know, again, I've been saying this a lot, but our regional enterprise network really coming up with a strategy for putting this out there and getting people to come and see for their own, with their own eyes. That's what's going to change. That's what's going to change our harbor systems.
The next question is, why is the CBRM forgiving loans of $172,000 to the Amera Center in North Sydney, then giving it a $30,000 loan? How does this help the folks across the community?
There may have been a misunderstanding in the comments yesterday. The $30,000 was a grant towards capital projects. That was a non-repayable loan. Last year, as part of budget deliberations, the North Sydney Community Civic Center Society, or the society that owns and operates the Amera Center, had submitted a request to council to consider forgiving that loan as a way of giving them a leg up. They are struggling financially, as all arenas do, to be frankly honest, that are operated by not-for-profit groups, because that loan was impacting their ability to access monies both from CBRM and other entities. So council made the decision on staff's recommendation to move forward with forgiving that loan to basically help them survive.
Thanks, Jennifer. And the last question here is, would the CBRM be willing to give money to police, fire, and/or waste departments for education of the community out on the street and in the schools, more boots on the ground, not necessarily a fire person, police person, or garbage person, but people that can teach and are outgoing?
So I'm going to look to a couple of our directors here in chief, but I do want to highlight there are some amazing educational programs that are offered through ACAP Cape Breton. They are paid for, and they're in, gosh, it's over a decade now of eco-partnership, talking about litter. There's a trash formers program, there's wastewater, there's source water protection, and solid waste in general. So there is a tremendous amount of education that happens in the schools, and the education is actually curriculum linked. So the educators are in the school systems, and it's from preschool up until grade 12 that these educational components are all there, and it's all online too. I will look to the chief in terms of the policing. Director, did you want to add anything to that?
Mayor, I think you covered it very well.
Oh, and our solid waste educators too at the solid waste hotline are incredible. They can answer any question that you put at them, but we also have a solid waste app too, and I think that's an important resource to highlight as well. So if you have questions about what do I put where can I go dispose of such and such an article or item, there's an app that can tell you all of that.
Thank you for the question. And yes, we do community engagement. We have community liaison officers that actively go and participate in schools. We have school liaison officers as well that speak regularly about policing and opportunities for community engagement. So it's already being done. COVID has been a very challenging period of time for us to actually do in-person engagement, but there's been other things available through online and other resources. So we welcome opportunities, and now as we see restrictions starting to relax and we're better able to go out into the community, you're going to see more of that. But I look at people like Sergeant Barry Gordon in Member 2, for example, on a daily basis. He is in schools and he is engaging with youth. And we still support our Boys and Girls Club here in Glace Bay. We're doing these community engagement pieces. So if you have any questions about it, you can contact our police service directly through our media advisor as well, Desiree Magnus, or any of our community liaison officers.
That's great. Thanks, Robert. And thank you to Corey for that question, or for those questions.
Those were great questions.
So I'll look back to the audience and see if there's any other questions from inside the room. And if hearing none, before I go to the mayor for the last word, I just want to remind folks watching at home and folks in the audience today that you can fill out the survey at cbrm.ns.ca/vision, which is on this document. It'll ask your opinion on the 5 strategic priority areas, as well as it has a box for, basically it asks the question, did we miss anything? And so this is the third and final town hall of the CBRM budget consultations for 2022. And all of the 3 YouTube videos will be posted to the CBRM's YouTube page after this is over. Before I go to the mayor, I'll just ask if either of the councilors wants to have a last word, and if not, then I'll just go to the mayor for the final word.
Hey guys, I'm Darren O'Quinn, Councillor for District 11, New Waterford, Scotchtown, Lingan, New Victoria, River Ryan. I just wanted to reiterate the point that Dave made. Our town is struggling. Our poverty rate, it is what you said, Dave, and since I've been elected a year and a half ago, I thought I know my town really well, and I really don't. There's, the numbers I'm hearing are just very, very disturbing. Our addiction rate is crazy. One thing I'm happy to announce is that we do have a youth center coming to town. Dave Soller is bringing the Undercurrent Youth Center to town here. And before we leave tonight, Dave, I'm going to introduce you to Jennifer here. And if you have some stuff for your application, I'm going to make sure that that gets done for you. And I've been trying to help Dave myself in town here, and what he's bringing to town is what our town needs. We have a lot of sports facilities, but there's lots of kids that aren't involved with sports, and Dave's going to bring something with his youth center. I've been in there quite a bit, Dave, and I'm very impressed with what's going on. And whatever we can do to help people like Dave for the Cbrm, that's what we should be doing. I'm committed to helping you, Dave, and I'm going to do whatever I can. And I'm going to introduce you to Jennifer in a few minutes. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Okay, so I'm going to give it over to the mayor for the last word.
Thanks so much. So thank you for coming out this evening, and thank you to everybody who is online and participating. I'm not going to lie, when we were talking about doing stuff in person again, it has been so long that it was almost a little, it was exciting, but it was nerve-wracking. But kind of reflecting on the past couple of days, it's been so great being with people again. And what I'm taking away from this meeting is that we need to do more of this, and we need to do more of it in different ways. So having those sessions where we bring people in the community together who are working on like projects. I love the fact that you guys shook hands tonight and were like, yes, okay, let's talk. That's the stuff that builds community. We can help and facilitate and support you, but we also need to bring people together more, and I recognize that, and I value that. This is not the end of this conversation either. We're going into budget in April. We are here, your council members, the staff of the CBRM. There's a reason we're called public servants. We're here to serve you. If there's something that you didn't feel comfortable talking about today, or pops up in your mind at midnight, flip a message, an email. We are going to keep this conversation going before we go into budget, and as we go forward. Just because budget ends doesn't mean this kind of consultation and connection ends either. So just a lot of gratitude for everybody who has participated in this. It's been a wonky couple of years. We're kind of going back into this transition of getting back together and spending time with each other and supporting each other. It's not easy, but I'm so grateful for everybody who is reaching out and doing the hard work in the community. Did you want me to say anything, Jen?
No, and just thank you everyone for your participation. The feedback tonight in particular was invaluable. We'll certainly take that away and do our best for you and for the community.
And don't forget to do the survey. Drive home safe, everybody. Take care, and we'll continue connecting.